This morning is in the form of a wisdom tale, and this means that it may not be true in the literal sense, but it's true in the soul sense. It's written by Colleen MacDonald, and it's entitled Grandmother's Gift. Once upon a time, a long, long time ago, way, way back, when in the time of our great, 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 and lots more great grandmother and grandfather, they came out of the earth. They grew out of the soil like a tulip or a grapevine or a willow tree. And the first woman and man blessed the earth, and they sang a song of thanksgiving for the gift of life. They walked around their new home and they explored, they climbed trees, they went and saw the ocean and swam in the ocean, they climbed mountains. But when they were tired of exploring, they decided that they would go back to where they were born, and they settled down. And in time, they had children, and their children had children, and then they had grandchildren, and so on. But as more babies were born, the land started to fill up. Women and men and children started spreading out over the earth, but even that wasn't enough. The earth was getting very full because remember, at that time in history, no one ever died, and so the earth just kept getting more and more crowded. Finally, when the earth was holding as many people as it could, a great council was called. The people decided that they needed to stop having children because the earth was so full. And so in the months and the years that followed, the babies became children, children became teens, and then adults, until at last the feel of a newborn baby became only a memory, and all the sounds of childhood and teen years faded away. Now remember, no one died, so the first man and the first woman were still alive. But one day, the woman began thinking to herself, and she said out loud, "Life has been wonderful. I've seen more twilights and more dawns than I could possibly count. I've rocked babies, and I've rocked my grandchildren and their grandchildren, and I'm ready to rest now. Remember when our house was full of children? I can hardly remember." And the man nodded. And the woman said, "I'm ready to give up my place on the earth so more children can come into the world." "Give up your place on earth?" the man said. "What would you do? Where would you go?" And the woman said, "I'd go back from where I came from. I'd go back to where I came from. I would go back to the earth." "And then what? What would happen then?" the man wondered. "I don't know," said the woman, "but the earth is our mother, and I am not afraid." And so the woman sent out word to all her children and grandchildren and so on, and they all gathered on the land, on the spot that the now oldest humans had originally sprung from the soil. And they all told stories, and they laughed, and they cried, and they told things that were long buried in forgetfulness. No one wanted to say goodbye to the woman, but they let her go, and she returned to the earth. And so death came to the very first human being. And time passed. Nothing much seemed to happen until one day someone spotted a sprout, a plant, coming up from the earth where the woman had returned to the earth. And in the days that followed, the plant grew and grew, and one day burst forth into a profusion of color and beauty. So this is what comes of dying, new life, they said. And eventually that plant withered, but the seeds brought forth new blossoms in the season that the people named the spring. So reassured, more and more people followed the first woman and returned to the earth, making room, and so babies were once again born, and children grew up accepting death, knowing that their time would come one day. And so death comes to each of us. The earth continues to call our bodies home. Spring and new life still comes, and the beautiful flowers bloom. I first want to say how much I appreciate everyone here today. This isn't sort of a normal topic for us, and it takes a certain degree of courage. So I really appreciate everyone being here today. It is really hard to think of ourselves as mortal beings, to know that our time here on this beautiful earth is limited, and that someday we will die. But the very knowledge of our own mortality is a gift. It is a gift that we give ourselves and those around us as we face each day with the best that we can give, in the full knowledge that time is so precious and not to be squandered. It is a gift that we resolve to live one day, this day, each day, with mindfulness and passion and love and kindness. And it's a gift even to have the gift to think about our own mortality, not just the part about what we hope people might say when we're gone, although that is important, but also about the very act of our death and the deaths of those that we love. The goal should be and must be to live a good life, but it's also to work for the possibility of a good death. This is the great unknown in our lives, how each of our deaths will come to pass, this final twist or turn on the journey of our lives. Many of us in our society have come to be so removed from death as a natural part of life. We prefer to push it to the side, and as we watch the baby boomers, no offense intended, but people are trying to stay young as we keep aging. But our society as a whole is not very supportive of this part of the life cycle, the end of the life cycle. And so for many of us, death is not very visible, not interwoven with the everyday life as it is in other societies and cultures. And added to this is our modern medical experience. As Dr. Atul Gawande writes in his excellent book, Being Mortal, scientific advances have turned the process of aging and dying into medical experiences. And he goes on to say that this experiment of making mortality into a medical experience is only decades old, and the results, the evidence is that it's failing. Our doctors are trained to get people better, to cure, and some view death as the enemy, the failure. The concept of first do no harm has been twisted and, in my opinion, misapplied, sometimes to the point where we actually inflict more harm on people at the end of their lives. And we forget about human comfort and care in the name of trying to save people. We equate do no harm with do not let them die. But this is not the same thing. We're here today to talk about the choice for some of us as we approach death. Not all of us will be in this particular situation in our lives that Cecily will be sharing with us in a moment. But our first Unitarian Universalist principle reminds us that we affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of all people. If not ourselves, then a loved one or a work colleague or someone else that we know might be in this situation of facing death and wanting to exercise their own free choice as to their experience of death. To me, it's expressed as the idea of living up to and including our final passage. Many of you might remember that my mom was a nurse, an RN, and she worked the night shift. And so sometimes at the breakfast table, my mom would just be coming home as I'm sitting there trying to eat my breakfast. Death would sometimes be a companion at our breakfast table. It's her stories. So I'm very lucky that I was raised with death as an integral part of life. Again, I'm grateful for each and every one of you for being here this morning to talk about this topic. And you are indeed living the gift of life to its fullest. And I have the honor now of asking Cecily to come forward. And thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Good morning, everyone. Wow, I am just in awe and honored to be here. Having this context in which to speak is just amazing. I'm from Compassion and Choices. I actually wear two hats. I have a business that's called Pathfinders Memorial Planning, which I'm not promoting or anything, but what I've learned from that is exactly what you're talking about, and that is that people they're afraid, or they don't expect people in their lives to die, and they themselves don't expect to die. And so there's nothing planned for. And when death does come, the grief is compounded by the fact that there's no plan in place. And so I love what you said. I loved everything that was said and sung today, the meditation, everything. I feel that we are very much in a culture shift where we're recognizing the value of accepting our mortality, and that it does allow us to live a more purposeful, meaningful life. And now I will hit the road. So let's see. So yes, I'm the Central California organizer for Compassion and Choices. That means that I work from Ventura, Santa Barbara, Monterey, San Luis Obispo, did I mention that? Kern County, Kings, Fresno, and what am I missing? Don't tell me, Tulare, which is where I spent most of last week. So it's a pretty broad territory. Next slide, please. I'm here to talk about SB 128, which is currently going through the legislature in the state senate. And it was, it came about because of Brittany Menard, and I don't know how many of you are familiar with her story, but she was a 29-year-old woman living in California with a terminal illness, a brain tumor that couldn't be cured. And she did her own research. She wasn't told that she was terminal here. She just figured that out by doing some research on her own. She decided that she wanted to access death with dignity in Oregon, and so she made the move to, she moved her whole family, establish residency, build her own medical team. You know, when you're terminally ill, you have a whole medical team you have to deal with. She did all that, and this is not something that everyone would be in a position to do. It's because she was young and they had the resources to do it. But let's face it, when we're, you know, in our 80s or 90s and we're failing, we're not going to have the energy to do that kind of thing. So anyway, Brittany brought this issue into the public eye in a way that we had not previously seen, and she is the inspiration for the law that was introduced by Senator Bill Monning of Monterey, and Senator Lois Wolk of Napa. Next slide. Yep, here we go. So it was introduced on January 15th, January 20th of this year, and we also have two Assembly co-authors, Susan Talamantes Eggman, and more recently, Luis Alejo, who is actually head of the Latino caucus, which we are thrilled about. Next slide. The bill specifics. So what this bill does is it, go ahead, next. Okay, a terminally ill, mentally competent adult who has received a diagnosis or a prognosis of 6 months can ask their doctor for a prescription to receive medication that will end their lives. They have to be able to self-administer it, and they would choose the time and place and whether to take this medication at all. Okay. They must have two physicians confirm that they are terminally ill and with a 6-month prognosis, and must make 2 oral requests separated by 15 days before this whole thing can proceed. They have to talk to their primary care, ask them twice, separated by 15 days. All of these measures are designed to prevent people from feeling coerced. And then a written request signed by or witnessed by 2 people completes the process. If at any time either of the doctors suspect that they're not mentally competent to make the decision, then they can order a psych evaluation, and in fact, 24 out of 25 requests, verbal requests, are rejected by the doctors for whatever reason. So you know that is working, at least. It sounds like a lot, but they really want to make sure that people aren't being coerced, that they're mentally competent, and that they're not, as people are concerned, just going through, that they're not really ready for that process. We believe that this is just an additional end-of-life treatment option. We have palliative care, we have hospice care, and this would be just one more option. And why would we choose this now? Is because there are times when palliative care doesn't touch the pain of someone who's dying of cancer. In fact, most of the people who utilize this law in Oregon, which it's been in place for 17 years, are cancer patients. And they sign up for the drug, or sign up to receive the drug, because they have been told their trajectory is going to be horrendous, how the disease is going to take them. And they are, and I'm trying to watch my so, sorry. I did it again. Okay. And I did it again. Okay. So, okay, I know. I shouldn't have even said it. Yeah. So, where was I? Okay, so.
You said cancer patients.
Yes, cancer patients are more likely because they have an unknown trajectory, and they're nervous about whether or not the pain medication will even be there. But it turns out that 25 to 30% of the people who actually receive the drug don't take it, which says that for a lot of people, it's just peace of mind, knowing that if things get bad, there's a way. And over the course of 17 years in Oregon, 700 and some odd have died using this drug. 700, say 750. That's not a lot of people. So it's a very small number of people who actually access and utilize this law. Okay, next. Okay, go ahead, next one. Okay, protections in the bill. This is completely a voluntary program. The patients, the request for the program has to come from the patient. It's not something that a doctor would be able to say, I think this is the best course of treatment for you. This would be the kind of thing where the doctor, based on a law that passed last year through the Assembly, that when you're given a terminal illness, you must be given the whole range of treatment options, from doing nothing to the most aggressive. Believe it or not, that was not the law before then. So this would be another one of those treatment options. And it is voluntary. If a physician doesn't want to participate or doesn't believe in this or whatever, they don't have to, they can say, no, I will not write the prescription. And I believe that even pharmacists can say no too, and patients, of course, can say no. That's not something I'm interested in. And by the way, even if they sign up for the drug and they receive the drug and they have the drug in their home and they outlive their 6-month prognosis, they are under no obligation to take it. So, you know, it's a good thing to know. You are never, ever required to take it. And, let's see. Oh, you are not eligible for this law by age or disability alone. There's been a lot of concern from disability advocates that someone will come in and decide that their life isn't worth living. This is a patient decision. Patients are the only ones that can decide whether or not their quality of life is one that they're comfortable with. And my mother right now is going through renal failure. Her doctor really wanted her to go through dialysis. She decided that she would try it, and so she was in the hospital for a week and went through 3 rounds of it and said, no, take it out, I don't want to do it. She knows this is going to shorten her life, but she also knows that it's not, for her, it's not a bad way to go. So, you know, it's just sort of speaking to the whole mentality of the medical profession, that death is sort of an enemy, that you've been defeated if someone chooses death. And I think that at her next visit, she's actually going to talk to her doctor about hospice, which is going to really disappoint him. I mean, because he wants her to live. He wants to treat her. So, you know, I think that we're all part of educating our doctors about what our goals are going forward. So, next slide. Physicians are required to discuss all feasible alternatives, and yes, the patient can decide to rescind at any time. In fact, if for those of you who saw How to Die in Oregon, you noticed that there was a volunteer who came in, or another person who came in and mixed the capsules. There's 100 capsules that they open up and empty into a drink. And they asked the question, do you know what this is going to do to you? And have you changed your mind? You have the right to change your mind until up to the very last minute. You never have to do it. And so what I want to let you know, what I have outside, I'm just going to briefly say that, oh no, next slide. I'll tell you that in a minute. Okay. These are the 5 states that currently have this law authorized. Oregon and Washington were both through ballot measures, which if we fail in the Senate, we are going to be pursuing for 2016. Vermont was a legislative action, and Montana and New Mexico have it authorized through court decisions. Next. So the key points: we believe that it's unacceptable that terminally ill, mentally competent adults should have to leave their homes, their families, their support systems, just to die peacefully. And that we've always been free to choose how we live. We should be able to choose how we die. Those are the key points that we believe are true about our rights as human beings. Okay, next. All right, so why do we need it? Too many suffer needlessly. Too many people suffer unrelenting pain. There is a story of a person for whom the medication did just the opposite of alleviate her pain. She went psychotic, and she had to be terminally sedated, meaning that she was in a coma until she died. That was not her choice, and she kept on saying, just let me go, let me go. That wasn't available to her. Okay, next slide. Just so you know that the polls do support us. 64% in California. That's a recent poll. I think it was last year. 74% of adults in the U.S. This is a poll that's been done every year since like 1977, and it's pretty consistently been a majority of adults in the U.S. support the idea that someone who is incurably ill should have the right to die peacefully. And now this is a new statistic that 54% of physicians support the idea as well. Next slide. All right, so medical aid is not an option for someone with Alzheimer's. Might come as a surprise, but as you know, by the time you have a 6-month prognosis with Alzheimer's, your mind is already gone, therefore you're not mentally competent and no longer eligible for the law. And obviously people in comas. This is not something that you can put in your advance directive and ask someone to do for you. This is all self-directed and self-ingested and everything else. And a minor can't participate. Next slide. Medical aid in dying is not an injection. It is not euthanasia. Some people will sort of imply that it's an injection. It is not. It is 100 pills that are separated, put into a sweet liquid, and drunk within 90 seconds. The patient falls asleep, and slowly the heart stops. And then it's not something the patient has to use. Just having the prescription provides tremendous comfort. And another advantage that this law has had in Oregon is that it's opened up, the honesty between patients and doctors is increased. She went up there and the doctor said, yeah, this is a terminal illness, and started talking to her right away about the death with dignity law. It also opens up conversations among family members, and it has increased the participation in hospice and palliative care throughout the state. So I'm going to close now. I do have things out in the back. I have a set of letters to all the appropriations committee members. Like I said, we don't have the votes to get through appropriations. This is the last committee in the Senate. If we do not pass appropriations, the bill dies. But again, we are still going to pursue the ballot initiative in 2016. So I have a packet of letters to each one of them, and if you sign each page and then fill out the relevant information, your address, your district number, which is probably, your Senate district is probably 19, and your Assembly district is 37. If you put that on the first page, then I will go home and watch TV and fill in all the rest. Okay for you, because I know it's a lot of work. Then you can put it in the empty, there's an empty box right in the middle of the table. Just put your completed forms in that. There's also a petition that if you sign, adds your name to the vast number of supporters in California. And if you put your email address, I will keep you informed about local events. And if you want to volunteer, if you're a medical professional or a doctor, please let me know. We want to contact you. There are a lot of elected officials who want to hear from you. And with that, I'm going to close with this video. It's probably the clouds, which that's what I was supposed to be speaking.
I hope for the sake of other other American citizens, all these people that I'm speaking to that I've never met, that I'll never meet, that this choice be extended to you, that this right, that we mobilize, that we vocalize, that we start to talk about it. I decided to share my story because I felt like this issue of death with dignity is misunderstood by many people in our community and culture. And I really wanted people to understand that as I went through the process of being approved for death with dignity, that I felt very valued by my physicians here and very protected. There's no way I could have possibly been coerced into this. It's not a fear-based choice, it's a logic-based choice. And coming to realize how much our culture fears death and shuns death, and how much of the medical community almost, on a patient side, like it feels as though they view death as a failure, which I understand, except for not when you're dealing with terminally ill patients, because by definition they are dying. If I can play even the smallest part in helping to reduce fear or misunderstanding, then it's worth speaking up for.
What's more important for a dying person than to have control at the end of their life? I'm hopeful that this will pass in every state in the Union.
Death with dignity is just a natural conclusion to a life with dignity.
We've got to have death with dignity. She wanted it. And anyone that's watching this, contact your assemblyman, contact your politicians who vote on this.
I know my family will continue to carry this torch along for me, that they all believe in the importance of what I'm doing. If there's one message to come away with from everything that I've been through, it is no matter what life kind of presents you with, is never be afraid to use your own voice. And even if you are uncertain, even if your voice is shaking, ask the questions you want to ask. Speak up for yourself. Advocate.
Let us hold hands or connect in some other way with everyone. Our faith, this congregation, is dedicated to the proposition that behind all our differences and beneath all our diversity, there is a unity that makes us one and binds us forever together, in spite of time and death and the space between the stars. Let us pause in silent witness to that unity. And dear ones, as you go forth in your week ahead to fully live our wild and precious lives, may the blessings of love be upon you. May love's peace abide with you, and may love's presence illuminate your heart now and forevermore. So be it. Amen, and blessed be. And now, as we extinguish the light of our communal chalice, our service truly begins. And the congregation